Well. It seems another interesting program after a Leaf performance. This one here, they had, I guess it's fair to say, they had a decent performance. What do you think?
I think they did all right, all things considered. At the end of the day, the world isn't on fire. Nobody's having their heads called for, at least not that I've seen. You know,
Give it a minute.
yeah, I know. More patient.
Give it a minute. Yeah, it was a game that I got to tell you, um, these close games, when they're able to win these close games, they're inspiring in regards to feeling there's hope that this team can play playoff hockey. They've done their fair share of dropping games they had well in hand in the first and maybe even the second period. They've done their fair share of that. But really, predominantly this season, they've done a good job of holding down the opposition. And they've almost had, I guess, is it fair to say they've done better holding down better teams than they have worse teams?
No, they certainly have. And again, that's that whole trap game phenomenon that you and I like to go on about. Where they're um, not necessarily at their best against teams where they need to be at their best. So, in this particular case here, they went in and managed to get 5 out of 6 points in a road trip that traditionally for them has been the kiss of death during any given season that has seen them come tumbling from wherever they are down to a wild card spot or sitting with no home ice advantage in the first round.
Absolutely.
So with the last 2 wins and getting the point against San Jose, they now find themselves with 94 points, one ahead of the Tampa Bay Lightning, who continued their winning ways the other night. Now won 4 in a row. The Florida Panthers are still 2 back. Leafs are at 6-3-1. Tampa's at 7-2-1. The Panthers are at 4-5-1. Bringing up the back end there, down in the wild card spots, 4-5. You still got the Senators, 5-4-1 in their last 10. The Habs, who have won their last 2 at 4-3-3. And the Habs kind of did us a favor with the way that they put the boots to the Panthers earlier this week. So, in that sense, it's not necessarily a bad thing that they're winning, but at the same time, I'd rather not play them in the first round because that COVID season is still bugging me.
Well, I'm of the belief that it doesn't help to try and figure out which team you should play. I think you should just have a blank page, have the game plan as you see it in the playoffs, and you'll have plenty of time to prepare for the team, the specific team, right?
Sure.
Well, let me put it this way to you. The fact that we don't ask the question of which team would they prefer to play is irrelevant because really what matters is their scouting of those teams, all of them, not just any one, because Aaron, they're not scouting one team. They're scouting them all, and they're looking at each team right from Ottawa to Montreal to anybody they could play in the first round. At this point, their scouting's open to any of the teams in the Atlantic Division in reality. Because we don't know, it's pretty safe. It's getting safer that Ottawa will be playing the other division. It's getting safe. The winner of the other division, which is Washington, who sit pretty far enough ahead of Toronto, and the Florida teams. They're way ahead of them. So the odds on the first wild card, not playing against the Atlantic Division are slim. So Montreal at this point, or whatever team takes that slot, is going to play Washington. That's going to be an interesting battle. And all we're figuring out here now is, are the Leafs a home team? Are they playing Ottawa, Tampa, or Miami, Florida, right? What team are they going to play? So scouting is going to be important right now. They're figuring things out and figuring what they're going to have to tell the team, what their expectations are from the players. They can look at the scouting, Aaron, and they can do general scouting, which is no matter who we play, this is what we need to do. And then they can fine tune it 2-3 days that they have for practice before the first playoff game. So, it's not like they're gonna just find out who they're gonna play 5 minutes before the game starts. There's going to be time. So I really don't care who they play. I don't think it matters at all, because the whole point of the playoffs, which we all love, is that you got to beat a team and get rid of them. It's basically don't lose because you get eliminated. Win and you keep going. So the first 4 wins are on the table. Who they play, not for me. How about you? Do you have a preference in your mind?
I honestly don't at this point. I think far too much has been made in the past of our various boogeymen and how much we need to beat them in order to be considered a success. And I'm getting to a point now where I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. Like, technically speaking, I would have loved to have seen the Leafs clinched by now. But as people are obviously aware, they haven't yet. When the Leafs left Lakeshore Lions Arena on Tuesday, the thinnest of margins was keeping them from clinching a spot. Had the Canadiens lost to the Panthers in any fashion on Tuesday, or if the Columbus Blue Jackets had lost to the Nashville Predators, the Leafs would have clinched a playoff spot. But the Canadiens rallied to beat the Panthers 3-2 in overtime, and the Blue Jackets crushed the Predators 8-4. So we now actually have to wait to get a crack at the postseason for the 9th year in a row. If we beat the Panthers tonight at Scotiabank, then we'll be clinched. And as far as I'm concerned, that's the place you need to be. That will help you define your playoff focus as to who's
clinched in the playoffs or clinched in first.
Clinched a playoff spot.
Right. Okay.
First is still up for grabs. Now, here's the interesting thing that I think not a lot of people are recognizing. This will be the 9th year in a row that the Maple Leafs will have made it into the playoffs. In the National Hockey League, only the Boston Bruins clinched a playoff spot in the past 8 years. That streak is coming to an end for the Bruins. As it currently stands, that would leave the Leafs with the longest active streak of having made the playoffs. Sure, we never get out of the first round, but that sort of consistency that we're seeing at this point is something that's envious in today's NHL, because we are there on a consistent basis.
That is very, very true. And well, you know what? It's something that I don't know. When we look at this, we look at the team and how they're playing, and for the most part, I think any team that has their 4 top players and they're considering how well their 4 top players are playing, I don't think there's a team that can say they're happier than the Leafs 4 players. If you took the 4 players from the Leafs and asked how they're doing, even with what Matthews is doing, which is less than you would expect from number 34 on the Maple Leafs, it's still a pretty good version of him. It's not the best version of him. And what we've seen, the other 3 players, Marner's slowing down a little bit, but, we know what Nylander's doing, and now 2-star status for Tavares in the NHL. So we know that they're playing well. The 3 of them are playing really well. If you open it up to a little longer schedule, and we know that Matthews is rounding into form.
No, that's very true. Tavares' 13 goals were not only the most by an NHL player in any calendar month in 2024-2025, but it's the most goals he's scored in any month in his NHL career. He also had, let's not forget, 7 assists to go along with that, giving him 20 points in 15 games as the Leafs went 8-5-2 in March, which is well above 500 and well above Bettman 500. So that's something that they're actually doing right. He's been a big example in the locker room on how to take care of yourself and how to show up prepared. He scored in 5 games in a row from March 20th to 29th, matching his career high, which he first did in the 12-13 season when he was with the Islanders. He also became the second player in franchise history to record a 5-game goal streak at the age of 34 or older. Matt Sundin, 35 at the time, did it in April 2006. The fact that he recorded his 1100th career point on March 20th against the Rangers was also huge. So Vegas Golden Knights center Jack Eichel, who had 23 points, that's 8 goals and 15 assists, was named the first star for March. And Bennington, who won 8 of 9, was named the third star.
Absolutely perfect for them. Great situation. Lovely for sure. Let's talk about Pacioretty and Hakanpää. They're on the verge of coming back. First of all, how does that work with their cap space? And how do you work them in? I mean, Hakanpää is somebody that I'm more eager to have come in, mainly because we really haven't had a really decent chance to see what kind of player he is.
Well, let's not let this get too overblown, first off. It was a practice that actually lasted about 15 minutes. So we're not talking a full-blown run here. We're not talking full drills, power play, breakouts, anything like that. It was a practice session that lasted just 15 minutes.
But they were on the ice.
Yeah, they were both on the ice, both skating with the team for the first time as they worked towards a return from long-time injuries. They weren't in the no-hit jerseys. They did appear to be in blues. Now, Pacioretty's been out since February 8th when he last played against the Canucks before the Four Nations face-off breaks.
2 months.
He had suffered an undisclosed injury in practice on February 19th and landed him on LTIR until February 28th. They moved him there on March 7th before the trade deadline for salary cap flexibility. Now, that move ensured he would miss a minimum of 10 games in 24 days.
He's done more than that.
Yeah, there is a potential there that he was actually injured. Now, Hakanpää's progression is also kind of key for the Leafs here because it's 6'7". Now, he's been out of the lineup since November 16th. He underwent minor knee surgery in hopes of returning in the second half of the season, but was placed on LTIR back on December 2nd. He's only played 2 games for the Leafs this season, along with 2 conditioning appearances for the AHL's Toronto Marlies, remaining pointless in those 4 games. He was initially named to Team Finland's four-nation face-off roster, but then had to withdraw due to his recovery timeline.
Yeah, he wasn't ready to play.
No, and the Maple Leafs have been abusing Pacioretty's $873,000 cap hit and Hakanpää's $1.47 million cap hit. But once the playoffs hit, the salary cap no longer applies. So if they're ready to go, they'll bring them in.
Yes, and they are those kinds of players that Hakanpää, he's not really physical, but his size assists what the Leafs need, which is, a defense that can take it, especially if it's Florida. If it's Florida or Ottawa that Toronto was playing, big physical, minute-sucking defensemen who can take abuse are going to be at a premium. Tampa, not so much. They'd be a team that the Leafs would be more of, not necessarily a rush line offense, but there would be more freedom, more mobility around, and it would be more about, puck carrying skills and entering, the other team's zone, and also figuring out ways to get the puck out quick and have more of an opportunity, because I don't see, maybe this is an unfair statement, but I don't see Tampa putting the kind of pressure on the Leaf defense that the other 2 teams would do.
No, Tampa Bay doesn't play the same style that the other teams in their division would. But having definitely a bigger presence, and he doesn't have to be a fighter or a baggage smasher like you mentioned. It's certainly the fact that he can take up space on the ice, as much space as he will, and the fact that he's not afraid to block shots is the other thing that's going to put him out there and serve him in good stead alongside Chris Tanev. So, hopefully he'll be good to go when he finally does come back.
I'm truly interested in a story that I'd like to share with you right now. We'll do after this. I'll do the story of the deal that Rogers has entered into. 11 million for 12 years, I think it is. Is it 11 million for 12 years? Talk about that and how that affects Canadian hockey fans.
Well, I mean, certainly you'd have a little more insight into how the television system works and everything like that, seeing as you did work with Rogers for a while there. But yeah, it's a 12-year, $11 billion deal, um, which is more than double the deal that they signed in 2013. Now, this doesn't kick in until the 2026-2027 season, so it's another 18 months away. Um, but yeah, you know, Rogers is now looking to double their ownership stakes in the Maple Leafs by buying out Bell Media's portion. Um, the TSN is now confined to strictly regional games. Uh, I'm I'm not 100% sure how this is actually going to work. I mean, it's more money certainly than they paid. This is also an indication that they could potentially be moving towards more streaming options, so Sportsnet Plus and all that other stuff that will add on, you know, $17 to $20 to your monthly bill. Um, you know, I know that Amazon has unequivocally stated that they're in hockey to stay. Whether or not they'll continue to do the Monday nights as they have been, or move off that because of NFL commitments that they have, they may decide that they want to pick up Wednesdays for national broadcasts instead, which is currently part of Sportsnet's bailiwick. We'll have to see how that goes. But realistically, they're talking about expanded coverage for out of market games, which is good for those of you who are fans of NHL teams that aren't in your cities and aren't necessarily a big fan of paying $200 a month for a streaming option. That's potentially good news, but we'll have to see how the rest of it shakes out.
Here's how I see it. How happy have you been with the way the broadcasting by Rogers these past 10 plus years? How happy are you?
I'll be honest with you. A lot of the times I put them on mute and I just run Joe Bowen on the radio next to it. But
That's a flavor thing that you're attaching to this.
yeah.
So with Amazon people, the first thing people said when they saw Amazon do the game, they were talking about the quality of the broadcast was higher. I personally, I don't think so. I don't think it was higher. I think, you know, that what it was, and this is the most important thing. It wasn't stale. It was fresh because they had different people doing the talking about about the game. And I liked, I liked the idea that when they had Ottawa as the team playing, or Edmonton or Calgary or Toronto, they had a specific direct flavor. They had an ex-Leaf or an ex-Oiler or an ex-Flame on, which I thought, isn't really, there's not much intuition into doing that. I mean, that's pretty much, reaching out to the fan base and saying, we appreciate you. You remember this guy? But it was different. Having said that, it was different. It wasn't, it was a pretty easy move to make. And they did a good job doing that. Rogers, as long as they do all the games and we watch a few from TSN, we do see the subtleties of the difference between Rogers and TSN, right? And if there was another party doing games, which we saw with Amazon, or if you watch an American rebroadcast on a Canadian channel like TSN or Sportsnet, you get another indication of, what else can be done in the game. So Rogers tries very hard. Believe me when I say I'm not a fan of Rogers. I'm not here to talk about how great Rogers is. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to try and be unbiased. And my unbiased view is that Rogers tries to do things differently, tries to be interesting, and are paying attention to the competition. And in doing so, are ensuring they're not being left behind on behalf of the fans in the way they watch hockey games. I'm not saying they're way ahead of everybody else, but they don't lag too far behind when they do, and they don't really get that far ahead of anybody else either. So it's what we're used to, more of the same type thing. But really what it comes down to, if they get out of the way and let the hockey game be the boss, Aaron, I think you and I would be, and every other hockey fan would be happy.
Yeah, I'm let hockey, I think is the best way to put it, Frank. I think you're right. Let the game speak for itself. The the whole tendency that broadcasters have of trying to appear unbiased for national broadcasts really shouldn't apply. You know, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to watch when
I don't think you can. I don't think you could do it to the satisfaction of the word bipartisan comes to mind.
Yeah.
You have two teams on the ice, and especially if it's two Canadian teams. TSN was the nickname that was given. The side-eye nickname was Toronto Sports Network for a reason. They're in Toronto, and they covered a lot of sports that were big in North America. And unfortunately for most cities in Canada, they don't have teams in those sports, basketball, baseball. So it's an easy mark, TSN, will they disappear? I think that's the bigger story, Aaron. That's what this story, as when you read the story, they talk about Roger Soon having 75% of the say at MLSE. And MLSE owns the Argos, a team that I care about, owns the 100% of the Blue Jays. And, it's their business. It's what they do. And they make a lot of money doing it. And even the Amazon games, Aaron, you'd mistake them for being Rogers broadcasts, with the way Rogers is prominently part of the broadcast. So it's branding. It's commercial. Selling.
I was going to say TSN has actually found a way to do all right for themselves. All things considered, and being shut out of national broadcast without the burdens of rights fees, they've shifted their focus to hockey news and breaking stories, which it's done pretty well. The important thing to remember here is that the deal for Rogers is for national rights. Regional deals is what TSN has for Canadian teams. Several are already in place for multiple seasons. And Bell, who owns TSN, have a content deal in place with the Maple Leafs through 2033. So they're not really shut out and on the outside looking in. They've just had to specialize for all of the NHL games that aren't considered national. So I can get my flavor that way.
Yeah, we'll see how it works out. It's a business, and now we know who'll be broadcasting the games, and it'll be Rogers with 75% interest in the Maple Leafs, and they have a vested interest in the popularity of the Maple Leafs. They have a vested interest in the broadcast being popular, which leans on every other team that plays under the Canadian banner, if you will. So so it's important. All right, let's move on to the second period, and we've got some news in the Canadian Football League. David and I both, I definitely knew this was the direction they were going, not with this individual, but an individual that understands TV broadcasting and trying to sell the game, nationally and even internationally. And they brought in Stuart Johnson of TSN, but his roots are CFL broadcast. That's who he is.
Yeah, and the fact that he's now highly placed, he was highly placed with Bell Media, now gets to bring all of that towards building his vision for the CFL. It's good for them that they have themselves in the position that they are, especially with this individual. He was a senior vice president for content and sales at Bell Media. He translated more than 25 years of knowledge gained in every facet of the sporting landscape into content development across all of the English and French language video, audio, and digital platforms for Bell Media's range of assets, including CTV, Crave, as well as TSN, RDS, Nuvo, Bell Media Studios, and iHeartRadio Canada. So there is a wealth of experience for him to draw on here in order to promote the league, expand their footprint through all media, including digital. I'm quite frankly excited to see where this goes.
That's the whole point of what the CFL needed. The previous owner was the previous commissioner was a player, and a lot of what he did, if hindsight's worth anything, he did a great job in changing the way the game was played, and the rules. That, to me, looking back, that's the best and biggest contribution he made to the Canadian Football League. He's left this league in good shape in as far as the rules allowing, again, the game to be broadcast and shown for its best features, right? I'm personally, I think he deserves a passing grade for that. What he didn't have experience in, and his weakness, was how to broadcast the game in different ways. We're going to find out. His rumor was that he didn't want the league to merge with the UFL. Does this guy that comes in, does Stewart come in wanting to do such a thing? Or does he want to maintain that we're Canadian, we can survive on our own, we can make this work? That's the question that he's first going to deal with in the midst of a new bargaining discussion between the league and the players. So his plate's going to be full.
Oh, and that, I think, is a genuine concern for everybody who's a fan of the CFL, is how, if that is the path that they decide to pursue, how is combining the XFL and USFL in the UFL and then integrating that into the CFL going to work? I mean, we tried expanding into the States before.
Yeah.
And it wasn't handled correctly. I'll be the first person to admit that.
It won't be handled correctly this time, Aaron, because there's now even more pressure to not allow, Canadian players to be forced on teams. And as much as we all love Canadian football players, the pool of Canadian football players is much smaller than that of the American football player. So regardless of the talent level, just in sheer numbers, American players, if you're shopping only for American players, you've got a better chance to get better players, just as you're disadvantaged if you're forced to populate half a team with Canadian players based on the amount that you have to pick from.
So, and again, it's a tightrope for him to walk.
And America won't let that happen.
Yeah,
it's tougher. It was tough then. It's going to be impossible now. Free trade is out of the question. Just imagine. Think about that. That the whole situation with Trump and him putting up tariffs. Now you've got a business that crosses the border.
And what seemed marginally possible before now seems slightly more daunting. Yeah. Get it.
To treat them, So I don't think it's possible at this juncture because of that. And people will say, "Well, what does sports have to do with business?" Well, what does sports have to do with a lot of things?
Some money.
Business. It's a business.
Yeah.
That's why it has a lot to do with everything. So it's going to be interesting. There's a few things that need to be figured out. Everything isn't the same this year as it was last year. So when people are contemplating basically a marriage between two leagues, one in the US and one in Canada, there wasn't the in-laws weren't having a bit of a spat. So this is a little different, this situation. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to be sure. Let's go over to the Canadian teams and see how quickly we can run through these, Aaron. Montreal beat the Panthers. You talked about it a little bit. You want to bring the rest of the point home?
Yeah, that was really handy. Josh Anderson got positioning in front of the net on Nuvis Balinskis and deflected a shot by Caden Gooley, passed a screen, Vitek Vanacek to put the Habs up just 4:43 in. 5 minutes later, the Panthers tied it up. It went back and forth for a bit, but then Nick Suzuki scored with just 8.4 seconds left. It was the first shot on goal for Montreal in 8 minutes in the third period. Their next shot would end the game after that. It was Suzuki scoring again, this time on a wraparound. That's got a sting for the Panthers. Hey, off to Toronto. Montreal sitting pretty for now, getting themselves a little further into the wild card.
So Canadian Tire adds extension for Sens Arena naming rights. That's the Canadian Tire Center.
Yeah, so this is one of those things where apparently the deal the Senators signed with Canadian Tire in 2013 for naming rights was set to expire at the end of the season. So it was a 12-year deal, estimated to be worth anywhere between $1.5 to $2 million a year. Canadian Tire has been a sponsor of the franchise since they first formed a team back in 1990. As it currently stands, that means that Canadian Tire has actually signed on, and the team is actually going to be staying at the Canadian Tire Center in Canada for another 5 years.
Yeah, there's talk about a new arena, but it's going to be a while if that's going to happen. The Jets were swept by the Kings in the season series. The last game, most recent one, 4-1.
Yeah, so the Kings started the scoring in the first period. They got 2 goals in quick succession. Trevor Moore recorded his 17th of the season to break the ice, and then Anze Kopitar extended the lead with his 19th this season. Cole Perfetti continued his strong end of the season, scoring his 17th of the season to cut the lead in half. Unfortunately, Andrei Kuzmenko would score shortly after that. Kings then shut the door on the Jets in the third period, limiting them to just 6 shots. And Kempe iced the game into the Jets' empty net.
Utah stuck at, well, they put another nail in the coffin that is the hopes that the Calgary Flames have for making the play.
Yeah, Stenlin and Hayton scored for the Utah Hockey Club in a 3-1 win over the Flames on Tuesday. Keller had the empty netter, and Carl Vejmelka stopped 32 shots to help Utah get its second straight win. That loss drops the Flames now 6 points back at the Minnesota Wild for the second wild card spot. They're definitely in tough at this point.
Oilers beat the Vegas Golden Knights 3-2, but that game, after it was over, due to other losses in other games, they have clinched a playoff spot, Vegas.
Yeah, this is where getting helped by other teams is something that you look forward to. Now, the Golden Knights did have their 6-game winning streak snapped, but when the Flames lost to Utah 3-1, that helped them lock it in. Edmonton still kept its slim hopes alive for the Pacific Division title, pulling the thing within 7 points of the first place Golden Knights. Both teams have 8 regular season games left.
And finally, the Canucks. Aaron, I just don't know I don't know who's going to coach this team. I don't know the star players that are going to stick to this team, the star players that might come to this team. I don't know if their locker room is going to be friendlier next year. But one thing I do know, sure doesn't look like they'll be making the playoffs.
No, they're definitely in tough at this point. They're currently sitting a point behind Calgary, and with only 8 games left, even though they've got 1 game in hand on Minnesota and 2 games in hand on the St. Louis Blues, the fact that Pettersson is still out, Cheadle is still out, and Nils Höglander are still out contributes to the fact that they're definitely in tough when it comes to winning games. Pettersson and Höglander were injured on the most recent 6-game road trip. Cheadle hasn't played since March 15th. As for practice on Tuesday, Höglander was on the ice in a non-contact jersey, while Pettersson and Cheadle weren't on the ice at all. There are questions as to whether or not Cheadle's actually going to play this year. Maybe. But you don't want to put a player into the type of position where he's forced back before he's ready to. So they're back in action tonight when they face the Kraken. This is, technically speaking, a must-win game for Vancouver as they're currently battling for a playoff spot. That goes at 10:30 tonight.
Well, the game is over for Vancouver. The show is over for us. Aaron, thanks for doing this.
Much appreciated, Frank. We'll see you Friday.
Okay, check out Candid Frank live on YouTube, 10:30. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. That would be Friday.